Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay at home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey, welcome to the show. I am very excited to be on today with my good buddy Danny. How you doing, Danny?
Chilling like a villain, man. How are you?
I'm well fed. I've gotten my
Mm.
fill of Thanksgiving turkey over the past couple of days, and I'm glad to be back home after spending multiple days with my family. I love them, but I also love walking away from them. That's why I live as far away from them as I do from time to time. So
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So
there you
that
go.
means you have to go away.
Exactly. That works for me. I'll take that. But yeah, so it's been good, man. I mean, can't complain. Yeah, we traveled up to see my family for a few days, and a few days is all you need with family, honestly,
Mhm.
to make you appreciate what you have back home.
Yep. And just very loving. I love my family. I love my wife's family. I really am surrounded by just great people. But for anybody, I have about a 3-day limit. It
Yep.
just after that, it's just you're just getting annoying. You just need to. Why are
Well,
you still here?
yeah, you start everybody just starts getting on each other's nerves for different little things, and you're like, this wouldn't be happening
Mm-hmm.
otherwise. So yeah,
Y'all
but other than
did
that, it
a
was good.
traditional Thanksgiving
Yeah,
turkey
very
dinner and all that.
Yeah, actually, so kind of an odd part to Thanksgiving this year was my sister and her husband cooked the turkey. They did a turkey in a bag. Have you ever heard of that before?
I've heard of it, but I've never had one.
It was delicious. I
No.
was pleasantly surprised. Literally throw the thing in the oven and let it cook all day, or like for 4 hours or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Came out perfect and super tasty, super moist.
Mm-hmm.
I made the house smell amazing.
Cool. Cool.
But then, you didn't have to baste it or anything like that because all the juices and stuff were like bubbling up in the bag and whatnot. When it was all said and done, you pulled it out, cut it open, and cut it up, and voila.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do
yeah,
you normally cook your turkey? Like if you stay home and not going to family, or
yeah,
you do have a turkey?
we've done turkey. If we've got people coming over to the house, we'll do a turkey. But
Mm-hmm.
typically, if it's just me, Corey, and the kids, we just do like a turkey breast.
Yeah.
That's usually plenty for us. But yeah, I usually do cook something up. I usually use an infrared cooker, which is pretty neat because you don't have to do a whole lot with that as well, but it also doesn't like heat the house up. It's just this really
Mm-hmm.
interesting concoction that I like it a lot better than the oven, honestly. I think it controls the, just the way that it cooks the turkey.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'll stay away from deep frying it. Those videos scare the living bejesus out of me every time I watch them.
Well, it's going to shock you, seeing as I'm from Georgia, but I love frying turkeys, and
Yeah.
I would fry. In past years when we had expectations for like family coming over, going over to family, and we have 4 kids, so I would fry 3 or 4 turkeys that week, like
Oh
throughout the
wow.
entire week, because
Okay.
we'd one for us so that we knew that we got enough, and then leftovers. And like if I took one to my mom, and usually I would take one to somebody else who, just for their event, I'll fry you a turkey. And I I love doing it, and
That's cool.
it's delicious. I mean, it is just, I do a lemon lime injection, like one of the main breasts, or the main breast, the only 2 breasts. So one of the breasts is lemon, one of the breasts is lime
Huh.
injected, and it just, yeah, or that, or a Cajun butter injection. It's just, yeah,
Okay.
primero. Love it.
I mean, it sounds super tasty. I'll be over. Order me up one. That sounds great.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, there we
We're all
go.
done. We had steaks.
Oh, that's a Christmas thing here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
we Corey and I tend to do steak and lobster tails for
Okay,
Christmas.
yeah.
the kids, we don't fix that for them. They're not really all fans. I mean, they'd eat lobster tail for sure, but not the
Mhm.
steak. So we might change things up a little bit this year. But yeah, we've done steak and lobster tail for the past couple of years, and we really like it. It's kind of a nice little intimate meal, just the two of us at
Mhm.
home. We try to make it as fun as possible. This year, actually, we'll have my sister-in-law and my niece here, and maybe my brother-in-law. This depends on work for him, I think. But
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
so who
We didn't
knows?
have anybody coming over. We do now that we live here close to the in-laws. We're doing 1 year with the in-laws and then 1 year with the other side of the family, let's say. So all
Yeah.
of the in-laws
Mhm.
would go to their family. And since I'm so far from my family, we just stayed home and everybody had steak and everybody loved it. And steak, mashed potatoes, king rolls, of course,
Ooh.
a huge salad. The salad was probably because Fabian made that, which I was very impressed, but it was like romaine and spinach and all of this, and then cashews and raspberries and feta and just
Ooh, that sounds
all,
delicious.
it was
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Well done.
He did really good.
Yeah.
So, but
That does
so
sound
talking
tasty.
about family and family running past their 3 day limit, that causes sometimes a bit of frustration or anger.
Anger, yes. Yeah, definitely. You can get that too with we had my dog there and my sister's dog
Oh,
there
yeah.
and
Oh,
and my their dog is this little dog and we have an Aussie Shepherd and the little dog was not happy that the Aussie
mm-hmm.
Shepherd was there most of the time. So there we had a little animal anger going on and which
Oh,
also then set my brother-in-law on a little edge from time to
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Uh
And,
but
your
yeah,
pet is like your kid in a lot of ways. If you have another dog and they're barking at each other or just upset, you get upset, you get
right. Yeah. And this was more just
definitely.
like this like weird like growling thing whenever they came like really close to each other. It was really stupid, honestly. Just
Well, yeah, that's
two
dogs.
two dogs being goofy, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so definitely had to dig into the how do you just sort of like woo-saw like get through that. For me, before we left, um I actually went downtown to Fort Wayne, Indiana. We traditionally the day after Thanksgiving we go to a
Hmm.
place called Fort Wayne's famous Coney Island, and their thing is Coney dogs, and
Oh,
um
yeah.
and they cook up tons of them. I mean, they'll do 40,000 dogs in a day. um
Wow.
that's how busy they can get down there. But we went down for Thursday or Friday with my
Hmm.
family, and I found a place down there that I had never seen before. That's
Yeah.
been there since 1874, and it's a tobacco shop. And
Well,
so
and you've been there and you haven't seen it. That's interesting because you said you go every year. So is it
it's in a
just
it was in a different part of the street
tucked
than what I
away?
typically
Yeah.
walk down. And we
All
just
right.
as we were walking down, I just happened to see the sign this time and it was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what's that? And ran over really quick. Of course, they were closed because it was the evening, but I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know this place even existed. So the next day,
Mm-hmm.
I just to kind of get a little self-care, I guess you would say, after a few days being with the family,
Yeah.
I got to break away on my own and go down to this tobacco shop, and I actually was able to pick up 4 cigars that I was not able to obtain when I was on my Pacific Northwest trip 2 years ago with the family.
All right.
Um, yeah,
So ones you were looking for that you,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Deadwood Tobacco Company. I
Mm-hmm.
had stopped actually in Deadwood, and they were out. They did
Oh,
not have these. I walked into the place in Fort Wayne, which is called Regal's, and they had all of them, which is really cool. It's their so
sweet.
yeah, it's the Sweet Janes and Fat Bottom Betties, and just like some really cool like cigars or whatever. But I picked
Very
those up,
cool.
and then I was talking to the store owner for a little bit, and we were just having a good time talking. I was gonna leave, and then I got drawn back into the store. It was so funny. But I started looking around at like the different ashtrays that he had there, and he had the typical like stuff that you see when you go to most smoke shops and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of like tucked back behind this one area, I found a very unique ashtray for one cigar, a one cigar ashtray. And it's actually a piece of like, I would consider it folk art. because what it is the bottom of a broken clay bottle, like a wine bottle type of
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
Where the artist had, like, after it broke, they sort of like, just kind of smoothed out all the like broken edges to it, and then knocked a piece out of the neck at the top of the pour of it,
Mm-hmm.
and set that in there. And there's like a little bump in, like you get on a wine bottle where you'd like, put your thumb to like hold it type of deal when you pour it. And it sets on that. And so basically here you have like the neck of this like a bottle where you can set your cigar on top of it, because it's like half of it. It's really cool. I can actually, we'll just do this real quick because that way you can see it, even though if anybody who's watching on YouTube, you'll get to see this. Basically it looks like this here. So this is what I got, Danny.
Now that's pretty darn cool.
Isn't that cool? So yeah, so it's got the bump out, like, just thing. But yeah, so then it just sets right on there, the neck. This is the pour here, and cigar will sit right on there. But yeah, I thought it was a really neat piece. It shows a lot of age inside of it too. Like, you can't really tell in this thing, but it's definitely a folk art piece that somebody was like, well, I can make that into something different. And the guy had it, I think, marked for like $10, and I reached into my pocket and I had like $9 in cash. I was like, I got $9 in cash. He's like, it's sold. He's like, I'll sell it to you for that.
And that's definitely worth $10.
Oh,
I mean,
easily,
that would be worth 20 easily. I mean, because can just, there's no way, just getting it done, getting it cut, glazing it, and putting it together, all that stuff. Yeah, that's well worth it. Even though, I mean, it's an ashtray, so you have a very, select market to who's going to want an ashtray. But at the same time, every cigar guy is going to want something like that. So that's pretty cool, man.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, because a lot of times I'm sitting out on the porch, it's like just me smoking. So perfect cigar thing. But you were talking about anger. Yeah, what you got real quick there? Sorry, before you.
I'm just going to say mine is a single.
You got a single too, yeah.
A single cigar, but it was made by one of the manufacturers for the humidor that I got, and I like it, because it's neat. It's a little niche thing, but I definitely wouldn't use it outside. It's too small. It's just like one cigar, and it'll fill up, because I smoke fat, long cigars, so they're going to get filled up with ash, and it doesn't really do it. But I love the look of it, and then it matches the humidor, and it matches with the cutter and the lighter and all that stuff that came with it. So
nice,
but it's a market. But yes, anger, an interesting subject that comes up around the holidays a lot, I think.
Very true, very true. And I feel like we've definitely tracked down the right guy to talk to about this, because he seemed to really just connect and strike a chord with all of our guys out in Phoenix. And so I'm excited to get to talk to Pete Beskas tonight.
I've been waiting to hear from. I didn't get to go to his breakout, and I love anger.
I didn't get to go either.
I really love anger, especially at the convention. There were a couple times I was like, oh yeah, I need just 1 minute. So no, it wasn't like that. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. So let's get him on.
All right, let's do that. We'll be right back. Become a member of the National At-Home Dad Network, an organization focused on providing advocacy, community, education, and support, connecting with households where dad is the primary caregiver of the children. We do this through our webinar and podcast series, mental health support groups, regular online social events, as well as our annual convention. The National At-Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization. Without the generous support of its members and the community around it, we would not be able to continue the work that we do. Becoming a member gives you access to past convention speaker presentations, the ability to vote for board members annually, and ensures that the organization's fees and bills are in positive standing. Oh yeah, it should not go unmentioned that there is some cool swag headed your way if you decide to become a member. For only $35 a year, your membership provides you with the exclusive content only we can generate, and you'll be supporting an organization that benefits families all around the country and world. By advocating for them, offering them community, providing education and guidance, and supporting them to grow in their parenthood journey. And one last thing, If you contribute $500 or more, you will become a lifetime member. Not only will you receive everything already mentioned, but also a certificate recognizing your status and an exclusive National At-Home Dad Network challenge coin with our trademark logo, Dads Don't Babysit. So, what are you waiting for? Become a member today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Hopefully, after hearing all of the commercials over the past other episodes, you either are now a member or you are considering being a member of the National At-Home Dad Network. And so if you have recently become a member, welcome. We're happy to have you. Hopefully we'll get to see you at an upcoming Home Dad Con. But other than that, if you're just thinking about it, highly consider it. It's a great opportunity. We've got a lot of great resources. And tonight especially, we've brought in one of the resources that was with us at Home Dad Con out in Phoenix this past October. We've got Pete Beskas with us. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Brock. Good to see you and Danny again. I love the Zoom format.
Definitely. Yeah. I am a little sad that we're not in person. I definitely enjoyed the time getting to hang out together and enjoy a beer and a conversation in a hotel room with a whole bunch of other guys. And that was a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, totally. Like meeting you guys all in person, it really does solidify kind of those relationships and really being able to feel more comfortable reaching out after. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Your talk was a big hit at the convention. A lot of guys have been discussing it. Danny and I have talked about it a couple of different times on the show since the convention and everything. And we thought it would be fun, even though you've talked to Matt on the webinar recently. We wanted to bring you on, just chat a little bit about, with the holidays coming up, anger is sort of a thing that, you get in-laws and family and whatnot together, and just the stresses of life in general this time of year. So we kind of wanted to come in and talk with you a little bit about that. And then also to just discuss maybe some things that are down the road that you're working on. So, but before we get into all that, we would like to know, just so that our listeners can find out a little bit about you, like what's your family dynamic like?
So my family dynamic is I've been married for almost 10 years, coming up 10 years in March. Got 2 kids. I've got a little girl who just turned 9, so not so little girl anymore. She's turning into a little lady. And my son is 7. So, it's a great dynamic. They're very close in age. My wife and I had the kids almost right away when we got married. And over the last 10 years, things have just been a lot of changes. That's one of the things I think is the constant changes. And that's something that I've had to deal with and learn to adapt because, as men, I think it's hard for us to change, especially, as we get older. But it's one of the best skills that I picked up. So the family dynamic,
attacked.
You feel attacked, yeah, I know. So the family dynamic was, at the beginning of our relationship, I was the 9-to-5 corporate bread earner, and then after some health issues and some of the struggles I went through, we kind of sold everything in Canada, moved down to the U.S. and became entrepreneurs, where my wife is a dentist and we opened up a dental practice. And at that point I had to shift roles. So I had to go from being kind of the primary earner to the support staff, right? And I was there to help her with the office. I was there to help with the kids. Our kids were quite young at the time. And that's kind of when I dove into being a stay-at-home dad and the primary caregiver for my children. So I wear a lot of hats. Subsequently, I also got into coaching because I wanted to be able to help men to overcome their issues and learn and grow and get that support, where I feel like we don't get that support very often as fathers and husbands and men. We're kind of left on an island. And my mission really is to just help guys create plans for themselves to get them out of the situation that they find themselves in.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
So your background is it in that, or what, what kind of brought you? I mean, you said you had transitioned into being a stay-at-home dad and was kind of trying to figure things out. But I mean, is that your primary background, or is that something you just kind of learned on your own?
Well, my primary background is engineering. I come from an engineering background. I approach everything very much like, here's a problem, let's solve it, right? And, I spent 20 years in the corporate world. I was in oil and gas, so I got to see a lot of different things, have a lot of different problems to solve. And then when I transitioned, it was very much just to look to try a different take a different tact in life. I had dealt with a lot of stress. I'd been diagnosed with cancer at 40, and was completely burnt out in my life. And at that point, I was more than happy to burn it all down. And that's kind of when I transitioned over.
Yeah.
And I took all of the really bad habits and I just put them in a suitcase and I brought them with me.
Yeah.
And then I spent the next few years, pouring kerosene on top of already burnt out peat and made it even worse. And it was from that aspect when I started to working with, therapists, coaches, everything else, is when I started to see the value in what we have to offer. And, my training wasn't in psychology, but it was in definitely working with people, working in teams, bridging the gap between lots of different groups. And then I applied all of those skills to bridging the gap between myself and my son, myself and my daughter.
Yeah.
And I think it's just those cumulative experiences and the ability to kind of think outside the box to uniquely solve problems, which kind of led me to where I am now.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, and with it still being November, that kind of thing, I'm just kind of curious, like, with men's health and that type of deal. I just want to kind of touch real quick. You mentioned that you have battled cancer. So I was just kind of curious, like, one, were there kids around at this time? And two, what kind of cancer was it?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. When I was 40, my son was about a year and a half old when I was diagnosed. So my daughter was about 3, my son was about a year and a half. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and I had a full thyroidectomy, so I had my thyroid removed, and they found quite a few lumps. And It's one of those diseases where they're like, if you're going to catch cancer, this is the one to get. And and as it applies to mental health, and I think this is something a lot of us do as men, is we try a lot to play things down. And I did that with my cancer, play it down. Oh, it's not the bad cancer. It's, I'm fine. It's, it could have been worse. It could have been the other guy. And then we kind of push all those emotions away and we don't deal with them.
Yeah.
As I experienced in mental health, with my own mental health, is I struggled to deal with, being weak, being unable to cope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine getting a diagnosis like that, like I would start having some things that I would be angry about along the way too with that.
Well, and to be honest with you guys, and I like to be as transparent as possible. I think at the time I blamed a lot of the external circumstances in my life for being in this place. And it's really easy to kind of reach out and grab what you think are the symptoms or where it came from. And I blame my career. I blame the stress that I was under. I blamed a lot of those things. And I do recognize that stress, isolation, burnout, fatigue, all of those issues play into our long-term health. It will manifest in our body somehow.
Yeah, that makes sense. I will say my brother had cancer in his thyroid just this past year and is still recovering from it. But like you said, he's like, I'm going to tell you something, but I got to tell you, it's the best possible bad news. And I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. And he said, well, so I do have cancer, but it's in my thyroid, and that's the best possible place to have it. The worst. And I'm like, no. This is still awful, man. But again, like you said, as men, we tend to downplay, how much something hurts or how much something affects us or how much of our emotions are tied up in that. And I feel personally that really one of the only emotions men are allowed to show is anger. We've had that for generations where, you've got to be the strong, silent type, which I kind of hate those words at this point. And, the stepping back into it slowed me down a little bit, but I'm okay. Trying to be tougher and exactly. Rub some dirt on it. You'll be fine. Walk it off, all of that type of mentality. Whereas, I will say anger being such a common thing. And, there's a lot of course things involved with that. I think every man has probably some predilection to falling towards anger. Like that can be a thing that you can do and you can just revel in it even. I would say if you go to every single home dad con from now on and offer anger breakout. It will be well attended.
Yeah.
It just will. It's something that we really just constantly deal with. And I think it's getting better generationally. We have children now that are teenagers and such, and Generation Z and whatever comes after Z, I can't remember, Alpha, I think, whatever generation that is, who are going to the therapist as a teenager, who have all of the words. They have emotional self-awareness, and they can say, well, yeah, I'm feeling anger, but that's just secondary to what's causing it, frustration or blah, blah, blah. And we as men didn't ever get to learn those words and the ability to use them properly. So
yeah, and to follow up on that, Danny, because I talked a little about that in the breakout, which in my opinion, a lot of therapists, a lot of the smarter people than me always say, anger is a secondary emotion. It hides what's underneath the other emotions. As men, we are allowed to be angry. We're allowed, it's socially acceptable for us to rage. The comics. The best is Bill Burr. You guys are all familiar with
Bill Burr.
Yeah, and his anger comedy, right? But if you notice, as he had kids, and he's in his 50s now, he even talks about how he's had to manage his anger, and his comedy right now isn't as angry as it was before. And I think that's what we have to, as we mature, and if we want to have healthy relationships, managing anger, it should be one of our top priorities.
Yeah,
I agree. Absolutely.
Think about all the different people who they have had, heart attacks and different things like that because they just couldn't manage their anger. And it's all it really would take is just coming to grips with how do I bring the stress level and the blood pressure down.
Mm-hmm. The blood pressure.
And it's interesting. We're always worried about the physical ailments. Like a lot of people, we don't make the changes until we get diagnosed with cancer. I didn't make any changes after being diagnosed with cancer. I just kept on the same war path that I was on before. What woke me up was the relationships that I was creating with my children, because I value those relationships more than anything else. Like it is my number one core value, our relationships, and my children atop that list. When I saw the fear in my children's eyes, when I saw their inability to feel safe around me, for me, that's what rocked me to my core. That's what hit me where it hurts. And it wasn't the cancer, it wasn't the jobs, and it wasn't the career. It was my kids don't feel safe to be around me.
Yeah.
And that for me was the eye opener. We talk about the heart attacks, we talk about this, but what about the people around us, the things that really matter? And if they matter to you, then, getting this under control is a priority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we care about our kids and our relationship with our kids more than our physical health, more than anything. So that's awesome. That's wonderful, as it should be. But let's use that to make the changes in ourselves so that we can maintain that. I think that's a great message. I remember the first convention I went to, actually. I came home, and on the way home, I stopped for about an hour or so, and I did some writing, which was awful. But the gist of it was, when I get home, are my kids going to run to me? Now, I've been gone for 4 days. Are they going to come running up to me and hug me? Or do they remember all the anger? Everything that I remember. I definitely remember the anger. I definitely still remember the times when I've yelled at my kids or raged around my kids, where they can see it and get, like you said, they get scared of it. But what do we do to get past that? Now, I know I'm going to ask you a question you really can't give a simple answer to, because it's going to be a personal thing and it's going to be a broad thing. But since we're talking about anger management, what do you think would be like the number 1, 2, 3 things that you would do to suggest, I should say, for people to do to deal with it if they have anger?
Yeah, the first thing, is the awareness piece. And I talk about this in all aspects. You can't solve any problem if you're not aware and willing to take responsibility that it exists. So before you do anything else, before you go and get help or you go implement techniques, they don't work until you take responsibility for it. And so that's number one. You have to identify that this is a problem and that you want to change it. Then you go into the tactical stuff. The tactical, I think there's so many great books that are written on tactical. It's the deep breathing, it's the meditation. But if you don't learn how to catch yourself, audit yourself, and then reflect back, the change never happened. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the critical. If I had to give anybody listening one piece of advice, is become aware. You can always fix things later, but if you don't start to pick out when this is happening, what your triggers are, when does this show up, that there's no way you're going to solve it.
It's awesome.
I also too, like, especially around the holidays, I find that that's one of the times where it's like you're feeling all kinds of emotions, and two, you're trying to figure out how to best like work through all of that and have a moment where you can kind of calm yourself down in different kinds of ways, and in a way, and in ways too that aren't going to like bring a lot of attention to you. And I feel like one of the things that I've started doing recently, and I feel like part of it is just from the fact of like going to Home Dad Con, and you get people like, you don't have to go to every session. And I feel like, to me, when I go to a family thing, it's like, I don't have to be a part of everything that's going on. Like, if there's nothing going on that I am involved in, if I'm not playing games with the family, if I'm not involved in the conversation that's going on or anything like that, like, I can excuse myself to walk away. Like, hey, all right, we're, especially if you're in an area, like maybe you're in a suburb or whatever, and you can go for a walk in like the subdivision or whatever. Like, that's what I did actually during Thanksgiving. I wasn't in a place of like, I don't want to be here, but I was in a place of, I just really want to start this like 3-day adventure of who knows where it's going to go off, with just the opportunity to just sort of like take a breath. We had just driven 3.5 hours to get there. And it was like, all right, I just need a moment to just, kind of bring it all together. And honestly, like, nobody said a word about it. Nobody really asked. I said, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. And that was about as far as it went. And honestly, if anybody had said, hey, can I come with you? I would have been like, sure, that's fine. Because, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to alienate nor feel like, like I'm in that kind of a position. I just want to sort of like have that ability to just take a breath and be calm about it. And I feel like a lot of people don't feel that they can do that, especially when they're around a lot of family.
Yeah, and that's something actually I talked about a little bit in the webinar that I did with Matt. There was about preparing for the holidays. It's about taking a look at where are you allocating your time and energy and trying to preserve it where you can. Like, if you're at all the events all the time, you're not doing yourself any favors, or your family any favors, or the people that are hosting you any favors.
Yeah.
Being able to identify that and look at, and I talked about the time budget and the energy budget, right? We talk about a money budget a lot during the holidays, and that's a lot of stress for all of us. But the time budget and the energy budget, and this is something kind of goes back, Danny, to the thyroid cancer. I had to learn the energy budget on top of the time budget.
Oh yeah.
When you get older, it doesn't matter if you don't have a thyroid or you have other conditions, maybe you're pre-diabetic, maybe it's something else. But if you can't manage your energy, you're not going to show up the way you want to for the people around you. And to tie this into anger, when we get tired, when we get worn out, when we get frustrated, what happens?
Yep. Angry faster.
Get angry faster, right? And so we're not planning for these things ahead of time. And this kind of leading into what I'm working on going forward. But if we're not planning this stuff ahead of time, if we're not aware of it, we don't even have the wherewithal to last minute, audible, because we're already in action mode. But when you set yourself up, like you said, take a walk. You were out driving for 3.5 hours. You just need to take a walk. And I'm going to share a secret with you guys. I haven't told this to anybody else yet. This is just for you guys. No one cares.
Thanks a lot, man. No one cares.
99.9% of all people are usually thinking about themselves first. They don't care. Like, if you're gone for 20 minutes on a walk,
yep, they only care if it affects them.
And I thought this podcast was going to affect people, and no one cares. Oh,
no one cares. No, but you're right. And it's that thing of looking at other people and going, oh, what are they going to think? What are they going to do? Yeah, they're not even, because I deal with anxiety a lot. And a part of it is, okay, what are the neighbors going to think? What are the guy at the stores? The guy at the store sees 50 people a day. He's not even going to remember me, much less if I had on the right shirt or if I had my hair styled right or whatever it was. It's really just, everybody, like you said, is involved in their own life, and not in a selfish way at all. But they have an entire life that they built up to the moment they meet you. And then they spend 10 minutes with you. and then they go on with the rest of their life. And you just don't, I mean, it's not like you don't matter like as a human being and all that, but really, that's great. I love that. Nobody cares. Secret of secrets.
And this is real nice, Danny, because we're just sort of getting our own little like counseling session here, a little hangout session with Pete and all of this, which that's something that you do. Like, I mean, you have like is it consulting? I thought I had seen where it said consulting.
Yeah, it's just life coaching. It's one-on-one
life coaching. Yeah,
with guys and with men in general. You know, I also coach women, the odd one who wants to come and get coached by me. But it's all about having a place to go where you can talk things out.
Yeah.
Because one thing, and this is something I remember being 20 years old, being lost, you know, not knowing where to turn. My father pretty much had, you know, I'd used up all his resources. There was nowhere else to go from there. And as I got older, I realized there's a real lack and a real, I guess, a vacuum of mentorship.
Yeah.
We don't have mentorship like we did 200 years ago when we apprenticed under people, when we had a group of men who would bring us in and lead us along. For good or ill, that was kind of the system set up. And right now we're all trying to figure it out on our own. And we make big mistakes, and we're not trained to go and ask for help, whether it's therapy, whether it's coaching, whether it's talking to an uncle or you know, another man in this situation. So my coaching is very much set up like mentorship. It's how do we set you up to succeed? How do we create, you know, the boundaries you need to succeed? And being that, not having, you know, the emotional connection with people. Sometimes you'll go to a friend and we call it jump in the pool. They'll jump in and agree with all your BS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's why.
No dissension. No, it's like, yes, you got it. That's right. Yeah. Oh, I hate that guy too. Yeah.
The yes man. It's the whole idea of the yes man syndrome type of thing, which is not helpful at all.
I hate to derail it. I'm sorry, but I have to say, Pete, you're definitely speaking our language, because Brock and I have on multiple occasions said that the two things we think that all dads need, all men need, is a mentor and a men's group.
Yes,
you know, that support network, to the network that you have, having someone that you can go to. And like you said, it could be your uncle, it could be your friend, but that's not necessarily going to agree with everything you say. And is not going to say, yeah, you're right. No, they're the jerk. They're doing wrong. They're making the mistakes, but it'll look you in the eye and go, you know, man, you're being a jerk.
Have you looked at this from all angles? Have you looked around the corner in that dark spot over there?
Yeah. Right. And you know, and it's funny that you say that, because I think a lot of what I do is shine a flashlight on the things you don't necessarily want to see. Right. Once you see them, we're all very capable. We're all very smart people. When we see something wrong, once we admit to it, we go to work fixing it. And that's the superpower in, I think, our DNA, is that most of us, by and large, are fixers. We can't stand to see a problem.
Yeah.
She's broken. And this is why I always kind of go back to that awareness piece, because once we're aware of it and once we take responsibility for it,
right,
now it's at work. You know, I can't tell you how many, you know, middle-aged adolescents I've met.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And guys who will not admit they're wrong, and guys who will not take responsibility. And I think that, you know, again, that needs to be taught out. And I loved the talk from, I can't remember his name, the Dr. Baxter? Who was it at the DadCon? Who had the book on he had the talk on
Rites of Passage.
The Rites of Passage.
Okay.
What fascinated me about that talk was when he talked about the bull elephants, and how when we don't have that structure and that guidance, the bull elephants will go off and just do whatever they want. And they needed to have that older group come in and show them the ropes. This is how we behave. This is how we act. And I think that that's just the maturity level. Like, if we're not guided and mentored properly from adolescence, we just become adolescent adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely.
Agreed.
I've been in the world of church for many, many years. And I feel like I see that sort of mentorship, especially in the Black churches that I've been around. It seems that they are always trying to rally around all of the young men in their church and kind of pull them out of everything that the world has just spilled and spewed in and onto them, and try to basically like open their eyes up to, you are past the age of where this there's no ability to say oops, or oh, like, kind of deal. Like, there's a new stage in your life, and you need to be able to basically step up and take responsibility. And I've seen guys like really just one struggle with it, in a way where
Mhm.
it's like, well, this is how I thought I could always be, to I don't know how that's going to work. I'm going to lose friends, or I'm going to, all these different, like, there's a whole sense of, if I make these changes, like, I'm going to lose these people that I consider to be friends, or that I consider to be, high standard or whatever. And in all actuality, when you're moving up a level, in some ways, if that person's not able to match it, then they're not that person, that you have them on
Mhm.
too high of a pedestal, to not be able to see that. So yeah, I totally agree. Like, getting yourself around folks that are older, wiser, and can um, basically help you to mature is there's a lot of good in that.
Well, the
Yeah,
thing.
but to your point though, Brock, and this is something that again I've studied quite a bit around the idea of the tribe, and one of the reasons most people don't grow is because they're not willing to make the sacrifices to grow. And it's not about sacrificing. It's, when we think of it normally, like, oh, I have to sacrifice sugar if I'm going to lose weight. It means cutting off what you're familiar with most, even if it's harmful. And that could be a relationship, it could be a spouse, it could be a sibling, it could be a parent. And when we cut people off, intrinsically, we're removing ourselves from the tribe. And that goes against our DNA.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the things that that my wife and I have done, and trust me, by all means, I say this in the most sensitive and saddest way. We have, in a lot of ways, put up huge walls and boundaries around my wife's family, because the majority of them are not a positive light in our life. And we don't want to cut them out completely, but we definitely limit the amount of interaction that we have with them. And those who that have been sort of even been walled off in the past, that really want to make a effort, have done so and have come around onto the other side. And those that haven't, we keep them at a distance, because there's just no need to allow like the toxicity that come from that, and just the negative things that can come from that. And so yeah, it sucks, because we've talked to people about it many times. We're like, yeah, like, we don't have relationship with these people. And the look on people's faces when you tell them, like, specific people that we have done that with, there's like, how could you do that? Like, they're blood. And it's like, like, blood's not always like that. That's not how it always works. Like, if they're
Yeah.
if they're not if they're not bringing positive things into the relationship, like, it's that's not going to be good for anybody.
Mhm. Yeah, and chosen family turns out to be more important than your blood family. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times you need to find the people, again, that are going to be, the word is tribe. That's a great word for it, that are going to be a part of that group or support network that you need, you
Yeah.
know. And you talk about adolescence, and kids growing into their 20s. And the thing that I thought of immediately was, okay, so what happens when you have a kid? If
Mm.
you, as an adult, cannot say, "Oh, I was wrong," that'll work on a kid for a long time. You can get away with it and go, "Because I said so." And your kid will, at least up until 8 or 9, maybe age of reason hits them, but at least until then, or maybe even to their teen years, you can say, "No, no, this is how it is. I said so." And no, I wasn't wrong. I did that and I meant that, or what have you. And being unable to deal with take responsibility for the things that you have done or that you've not done, the things that you did not perform well. And that won't work at a certain point. And when they get in their teens or when they're adults themselves, one, they never learned probably to be responsible or to say they're sorry or to say that they're wrong. And then two, they're going to come back to you And they are at some point going to look at you and say, you were a terrible dad.
Yeah.
And I that would break me. There are
Yeah.
very few
Yeah.
things I think that I can say that would snap me in half. I'm a fairly resilient person in a lot of ways, but my kid coming to me and telling me that, that is not something I would give anything that I've got now to get to that. So talking about mentors and mentors specifically, I look around and we just moved into a new area. I don't know anybody here. I have a few mentors online that I talk to that I've known for years and what have you. And we all, hopefully all have somebody, but I think it's wonderful that you have set up a system to where people can get in touch with you and talk with you to get some coaching. And for our network members, at, if I understand correctly, no charge for the first session, right?
Yep. So what I'm trying to do here is, again, create awareness and show people the power of having someone in your corner. And I think it's a scary thing to first reach out and ask for that help, right? And I'm trying to remove all the barriers and make it as easy as possible for guys to get, like I said, a free one-on-one session with me, just to sit down and talk about what are your plans for 2023? What do you want? Like, create a little framework around what do you want from your life, and let's put together some ways that you can get there.
Nice.
I think, again, the awareness piece is huge. For most people, it's really just about sitting down and thinking about it and having someone ask the right questions, have someone probe, because we've all done worksheets. Like, I have worksheets. If you want a worksheet, I'll create one for you in a hand. But how many guys out there will go and do a worksheet, right? It's homework.
Yeah.
We get to the point where we stop. I think one of the best probing exercises you can do in life is any kind of root cause analysis. But that makes you have to look at a question and drill down deep. I don't believe most of us will hold ourselves to go down deep and to push hard and to get there. And I think, one session, you will see you'll see the power of one session just by answering questions that you're trying to avoid answering.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I will say this. A few years ago, I met the first guy who was like a coach. And honestly, I immediately was like, no way. I was super skeptical. I was like, there's absolutely no way. You're going to sell me some snake oil. I don't know what's going on. I just had it completely. And he was like, no, really. He's like, let's just jump on a call, man. And he was like, we'll just talk and, kind of see where things go. And I was like, all right, fine. Cause he was like, I just want to, hear more about who you are. And I want to, see maybe where some things are that you're being held up on or whatever it is. I'm like, all right, I will give you a one phone call deal. Let's do this. And so jumped on a call and we talked for, I don't know, 45 minutes or something like that. And honestly, we had a great conversation, and there were definitely some things that we pulled out of that conversation for me to work on, to just even take some time to just sit and think about, or to go back and have conversation with my wife about, and just kind of mill it over. And then he and I actually did a few more conversations on it because he was actually building up a portfolio. And so I did actually a little bit of a review for what he was doing as well. But we had a few more conversations, pulled some more stuff out. And honestly, in the end of just having 2 or 3 conversations, it was great because I had now basically stepped into a different path that was parallel to the one I was already walking, but was more fruitful, had much more a lighted path of, hey, this is, I see a better trajectory, and I see a goal, a finish line kind of deal, to get to. And it's not the finish line, it's a finish line to then walk to the next one. And so those kind of things were vocabulary that I didn't really have, but at the same time, it's instead of just looking for that, oh, I'm going to get here and I'm going to be done. It's no, it's I'm going to get here. And it's all right, now I can start climbing to the next thing. And that was stuff that my dad didn't instill any of that into me. That's not something that he would have been involved in, nor my grandfather for that matter. But at the same time too, I do know that my grandfather, being that he was a leader in the church, was a part of vision casting things, and having these moments during the beginning or just at the very end of the year to where what is it that we want to do for the upcoming year? What is it? What are our goals? Like that kind of deal. And I know that's something that my wife and I over the past few years have sat down and like, what are our goals for our family? What are our goals for our marriage? What are our individual goals? Like, and really breaking those things down, writing them down and having that opportunity. And that's been great. Like, and that all stemmed out of just having some time with a coach, and it was great. Is that something that you're doing, or is that like, is that something that's a part of what you're involved with?
Yeah, so I'll break it down. I always like to say, like, a lot of people will confuse like therapy and coaching, and I always even say like programs, right? Realistically, when you're looking, like I always say, therapists really focus on your past. They're really focusing on trying to make you functioning human being again, and go through a lot of those traumas and issues. I look at coaches as people who are here trying to get you to your future.
Yep.
To execute on things. And then even inside of coaches, and I learned this from one of my mentors as well, that there really is two branches. One is the coach mentor, which is where I kind of fall in because I believe in mentorship. And that's what I always crave, is building connection with people, helping to see them through to a goal, helping them to build a better future for themselves where they're striving, and to be there to support them through it. And then the other ones are what you probably see a lot of the times, which are programs. Lose 20 pounds, make $100,000, whatever it is. And those are great too, because those are actionable steps that will give you a tangible return, right? You'll see something.
Right.
Like I said, I always love the mentorship side, because I think when life comes up, and with the clients I've worked with, it's never black and white. It's not, I need to lose 20 pounds and my life's going to be better. It's about teaching you how to make your life better so that you'll lose weight and feel great. You'll get it, you'll transition from being at home to getting a job and you'll feel great, or it's building a better relationship with your child. One of my clients, and this is a great success story. First session, we were going to coach on getting him certified for a new program. And the first session came out and we talked about how bath time had turned into wartime in the house. and in one session, the next week he came back, he goes, bath time's great.
Nice. Yeah. See, that's the success story that we need to hear. his bath time goes from being literal wartime to actually, no, it takes a bath. Everything's fine. They don't throw anything at me. There's no crying. I'm not crying. They're not crying. It's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's what I see the mentorship coaching side of, is like, life comes up and you got to deal with that and work towards what you ultimately want to get to. Because there's one thing I've noticed is, I'm writing a manuscript right now about planning and plan making, everything else, and one of them is your plan will change.
Yep.
You will have to adapt for that.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Be ready to pivot on be ready to change however it looks, for sure. So
and no one feels that more acutely than the guys at home, right? We know that on a daily basis.
I told my wife a long time ago, I said, she wants to have one job for the rest of her life. She doesn't want to have to ever get another job. She just, can I just do this? She's very good at what she does, and it's very good that she's where she's at. She's got a great company yet, and it works great for her. And she wants to stay at that company forever until she retires. And I told her within 2 years of doing this job, I said, this is what I need. This is how I live. Every day is different. I try to plan. Nothing works. It's just, no, you wanted to go do this. I'm sorry. We have a poopy diaper. And no, you forgot the diapers, or you've used them all up, or whatever it might be. And that ability to pivot every single moment, every single day, is what I love about this job. But it is also the most tiring thing that I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
I cannot keep up with. I mean, I'm glad all my kids are all, they're 7 and up, or 8 and up. So I'm much, much better off than I was when they were in diapers. But that ability to bounce from one thing to the other means that you're literally moving more than you've ever moved in your life, and it wears you out.
That point especially is one of the reasons why it is that I'm hoping that I get hired at the position that I just applied for recently, because it's an event coordinator position at a brewery here in town. And I'm just like, when I go in the interview and be like, listen, like, I know all about pivoting and I know all about change and how it changes literally at the snap of a finger, and it doesn't phase me. It's like, all right, like I can pause and figure out like, what do we need to do, and not have it like basically like destroy me with the fact that the plan that we had in motion isn't going to happen exactly like
it's
it was
definitely
stated.
not gonna.
But by God, I'll make it happen some way and it'll
Yeah.
work. Type of deal. It's like I will carry a roll of duct tape in my back pocket for whatever occasion is needed.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, right? And I think what we go through is this creates that resiliency, right? And it's important. And it's important for our mental health to be able to be resilient and to know that we can overcome that. How many guys feel alone when they can't overcome these adversities?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The mental chatter, I'm a failure. I'm terrible at this. You know, one thing I think I mentioned a while ago was B minus parenting's perfectly fine.
Yes, it is.
Right? Because at the end of the year one, I didn't get an award. And moms have been saying this for years, right? The stay-at-home moms have been saying this for years. There's no award for being at home with your kids, right? So you just kind of have to figure it out your way.
Put this in here. I will say one thing. I feel like you've done good reward wise is if your kids are like, Dad needs a beer or a good bourbon right now. Like they understand. Like
Yeah. No, when they will old enough, hopefully someday my kids are not, but they will old enough to buy me that bottle of bourbon.
Yes.
You know, that's what I'm looking for. Or really, like my kid is my oldest is in high school and he's taking a cooking class. Now he can't cook anywhere near how I can cook because I've been cooking for 40 years. So, but he's learning thing every day. And like tonight, he made dinner. So yeah, I made chicken fried rice for everybody. I'm like, what? Wow. Okay, rock on. That's it. I'm out. I'm done for the day. I don't have to do anything. I'm the best dad ever, obviously, because I somehow have a kid that knows how to cook. But anyway.
But yeah, so you mentioned that you're working on a manuscript currently. What is the title of that, and when is it going to be available for us to be able to get our hands on it?
Well, it's part of an anthology book, and it's started by Jim Britt and Kevin Harrington. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kevin Harrington. He's on Shark Tank. He's one of the sharks. And Jim Britt is one of the founders kind of speaking engagements and mental work, and he's a contemporary of Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins.
Kevin is Mr. Wonderful, correct?
No, that's Kevin O'Leary.
Oh, that's Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah, Kevin O'Leary is Mr. Wonderful.
That's right.
So this book is endorsed. It's also endorsed by Tony Robbins, and it's an anthology. So they put about 12 different thought leaders, authors together, along with Jim and Kevin, and they've put out 8 already. And I'm part of the 9th collaboration. So the chapter I'm writing is called Man with a Plan, and it's really outlining my journey about how I learned how to plan, how I've lost my plan, and where I ended up. And to give people some tactical, ways to think about setting plans for themselves so that they can be in a position of somewhat control. And I think as guys, that's something that we always strive to have is control of our environment. And when we lose that control, we start to lose our minds a bit. I know I do.
Yeah.
And this is about having a little bit of that forethought. Live your life intentionally, but the only way we can do that is if we have some structure around it.
Right. Well, and I think too, like that speaks really well to the at-home dad life. I mean, a lot of guys that are in this world of being an at-home dad, they were on one set plan and now that's changed in some ways and they're trying to figure it out. And so it sounds like that would be something that would speak very much right into their faces as far as to what they're going through and trying to figure out.
So it should be coming out in January, but ahead of the time, I'm going to have downloadable on my website where it's going to be the framework of creating a plan for yourself. And I thought about it like for those who don't want to take me up on the just one-on-one sit down, create a mini plan for them, that offer. Definitely they can go at their own pace, at their own, comfort level, and just to start to think about it. Because, I think as someone who has stayed at home with the kids, we can't just live life saying, oh, well, I'm just going to wake up and wing it. I find that, that is probably the worst way to go about being a parent, waking up every day and just saying, wing it. I'll figure what's going to happen. Like,
let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Right? And it inevitably end in frustration. And even if you're at, for myself, when I'm at home, when I'm with the kids, when they're home from school, I try to have a framework. It doesn't have to be tight, but it definitely has to have some boundaries. And as my kids have gotten older, I bring them in. Like, I just erased my whiteboard. Yesterday, we had a brainstorm. Say, hey guys, what are we gonna do today? We got a free day. Everybody gets to throw out an idea, right? And we created a plan together. And it was a wonderful day. And I think that, once you start to get into that rhythm, it's so much better. Life is so much better with a plan. That's what I think.
Definitely. No, I love that. That's great too, because you're giving the kids also the opportunity to help in that plan. And when they're 7 and 9, like mine are 7 and 9 as well. So like they would love that, being able to like, all right, like as long as you set up the parameters, like this is how much of money that we've got for the day. This is the time frame that we have. What do you want to do? Because I feel like if you were like, hey, what do you want to do? Oh my gosh, let's go to, like they would come up with something super crazy. So you got to put some parameters in there.
It's interesting, Brock, because I'm gonna totally throw it out there, is that our kids, especially as they're getting older, and my son, I learned this the hard way, is don't butt heads. I can get collaboration and collaborate like you mentioned, boundaries. We're here to make sure that the stuff doesn't go on fire. But I also give my kids a couple obstacles. Like, okay, guys, you want to do this and you want to do this. How are we going to do it?
Right.
I try to get to problem solve a little bit as well.
Yeah.
They get to see, that's not going to make a lot of sense. You're right, Dad. Maybe we can do something else. And I find that that's a really powerful exercise.
Nice.
Definitely. So kind of some things that are going on, just to recap, because we're coming up against the wall on things for this conversation. But so you're offering a one-on-one session with the guys in the group to get in touch with you, which I think is great. Honestly, guys, you heard me say I was skeptical about it, but I'm telling you right now, it's worth the phone call, worth the conversation to have. And if you've met Pete, it's worth having a conversation with him. So there's that. And then two, you mentioned sort of the working on goals for the upcoming year, I believe.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing. I think a lot of times we forget to stop and do that. Like, hey, it's a new year. We need to reset. We need to figure out what did we accomplish? And I think it's good to look back on what did we accomplish the previous year, what we didn't accomplish, and what do we want to carry into the following year.
Can I add something? Because
do it.
On that, right? December, I always find, is this really, like, everyone's gearing down. Everyone's like, I'm just going to coast into the new year. And I'm actually trying to think of New Year's resolutions as damage control, right? It's what just happened? And now we look back and now we feel bad. And now we're like, playing catch up. Whereas if you can come into December with an action plan, if you can come in December with something really tangible, your January is more, I'm still on the right path. And then you don't feel the necessary pressure to resolution yourself.
Yeah.
When that comes, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
This year, I'm not going to do this thing that I've been doing all last year. Come on. That's not the positive. It's definitely not a positive, and it's not a plan at all. It's not a plan. It's like, well, I'm not going to do those bad things. Yeah, that's a great idea. That's more like an ideal, not an actual plan at all. So
100%. So like I said, anybody can reach me on my website at petebeskas.com or DM me on Facebook, like just whatever's easiest for people, and I'm really easy to get a hold of. Like I said, I try to limit my hours per week. So first guys who are going to get booked in are going to get the choice times.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, yeah, we'll have all that in the show notes. So definitely, hopefully guys, once they hear the episode, they start getting in touch with you to get that set up, because probably the first out of the gate, just like you said, first come, first serve. So if you want it, get on it. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking with us. This has been just really good, especially like after Danny and I were saying, like, we've had Thanksgiving, we've been around our families, and we were just really excited to get the opportunity to sit down and talk with you. I'm glad that your family's feeling better. I know that you've had quite the week. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk with us today.
Oh man, that was so great to chat with both of you. I have a blast with the network. I have a blast with the group, with the guys. I'm just really honored that you guys had me on the show. And like I said, looking forward to chatting some more in the future.
Sounds great. Well, everybody else, we will talk to you all next week, and I hope you have a great one and have a good one. See you.
Good night, everybody.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.